Hello and welcome to another video by DeckerDev. Today we're going to be initializing an Express app. Express is a JavaScript framework for creating APIs and general sort of web applications. For this, I have basically an empty sort of repository ready to start. So I'm going to grab this. I'm going to start in my programming web folder. I'm going to run cmd.exe. so that I can actually go and do some stuff. So I'm going to clone down the repository. So I'm going to use git clone of the repository. CD into the repository. And now what I want to do is I want to bootstrap an actual npm application. So npm init-y. It's going to initialize an npm and a package.json ready for us to use. So what we're going to actually do now, we're going to go and install some stuff. So npm I for install, and we're going to install Express and something called NodeMon. This is going to give us our prerequisites to start up an Express application and have some development workflow ready. Now that we've done that, I'm going to run VS Code, so code space dot, so we can open this up as a project. So now we've got some file structure here. We've got these node modules, we've got a git ignore, we've got a license, we've got a package lock JSON, we've got a package JSON and a README. So to actually set this up so we can run it, we need a couple of things. First off, I want to make a new file called server.js to put my actual code in. I also want to edit the package JSON to say, instead of main is index.js, I want to say it's server.js. Also want to add a script called serve. And this is going to basically run something like node space server.js. I also, while I'm developing, I want to add another script and call it dev. And what this is going to do, it's going to use NodeMon to run server.js. Now, what NodeMon does, as opposed to just Node, it monitors the file for changes. And if there are any changes, it restarts the server. So we don't have to like stop the server every single time we make a change and then start it again. So let's save that file. And for now, let's just make a new console.log time to code. Save that. Next, we're going to go into the terminal, new terminal. So now what I want to do is npm run dev. This runs NodeMon and it runs time to code. It's done. That's cool. If I change this to time to code 2, save it, it reruns. So every little change that we make, it reruns the server whenever we save. So that's kind of our overview of that. Now we're going to be using what we call Node.js. And something we haven't introduced prior to this is how to import sort of code into a simple npm project. So there's newer stuff where we would type in import, but we're not going to do that. We're going to actually make a const express equal to require express. So this is an older sort of syntax, but it's the one that just works nicely because it's common JS modules. We can turn it into a different module, but that means doing a load of other stuff like things like that. But for now, we'll just use the require sort of syntax. So const express require express. Express is a whole sort of framework under the hood. For our purposes, though, we're going to actually be running express to instantiate an object of it. So we're going to say const app is equal to express. Now we have an instance of the Express framework. This is our Express application. If we want to listen on certain ports on our system, we can do app.listen and pass it a port, let's say 5,000. This, in essence, is an application. It's an Express application. Of course, it doesn't do much other than listen on a port for requests coming in to localhost at port 5,000. We can do a request to localhost at port 5,000 by literally visiting it. So localhost colon 5,000. The thing with this is it's saying cannot get a slash. Get is a get request, and that's what happens when we try to get a web page or get something with the web browser. So we need to handle a get request to slash. To do this, we can actually use app.get and pass it the slash. Then it says, well, what do you want to do when somebody hits that endpoint? Well, what we're going to do, we're going to say res. Follow along with this pattern for now. So rec is the request that's been sent, and in our case, we're sending a get request to slash. So any information we send in that request will be passed into this variable. Then response, or res, is the actual response that's being sent back to our web browser. So in this case, we could just do res for response dot JSON and pass back hello from Express. I'm going to continue in my single quote sort of convention here. So at this point, let's save this and note it restarted the node server. Let's try and do another get. So we go here, look, it said hello from Express. It's now done exactly what we asked it to do. When we do a get request to slash, we get a hello from Express. And if we save this as a different thing, time to the code, save that. Now we hit the endpoint again. It's just whatever we tell it to be. And this is in essence, the simplest version of an Express application. We bootstrapped a basic Express application. We could make it a little bit better by adding what we call a callback here. So we can give a little bit more feedback to the caller and say started, let's say started server on port, and then literally pass in a port 5,000. Now, we're kind of hard coding this port. If we want to change it, we've got to change it here and here. When we start having to change in multiple places, that's what we call, it's not very dry. It's not very do not repeat yourself. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a const of port equal to 5,000. And we're just going to replace these hard-coded values with port. So that way, wherever we're going to use that, we can just change it in one place and it will change it everywhere that we used it. So let's save that. Now it's saying started server on port 5,000. So we get a bit of feedback telling us what port it started on. If I change this to 5,001, it's all started on port 5,001. I'm going to change that back to 5,000 just for brevity. So we're getting a little bit more feedback. Now, JSON is actually a form of sort of notation. It's what we call JavaScript object notation. And strictly speaking, this isn't exactly very good JSON. Let's turn it into an actual piece of JSON. Let's give it the shape at least. We'll say that it's got a message of that. So now we save it. Now let's hit the endpoint again. Now we've got a piece of JSON. We've got this object with a key of message and a value of time to code. So this actually gives us that sort of real world feel and experience. So the portions that we've done is we've imported Express by using a require directive. We've created a const of 5,000, called it port. We've created const of app, and it's basically an instantiation of the Express application. We've created a get request handler by telling it that we want to, whenever you try to get slash, we run this code. And we're listening on the port and giving some feedback to the caller saying start server on port, whatever the port is. At this point, we've developed a simple basic app. So I'm going to do Control C and yes to terminate batch job. Now I'm going to run npm run serve, and that's it running without running nodemon. So if we make changes, we're not in development mode now. We're serving our application. Oh, it still does the same sort of thing. It's just we're no longer in development mode. We're sitting there serving the application with serve. Now, to finalize what we've done, I'm going to terminate the batch job, and then what we'll do is we'll do a git add dot, a git commit tac, and then what we'll say is created initial ExpressJS bootstrap API. Simple, basic. Now I'm going to do a git push origin main. I'm going to make that upstream, so I'll do a git push -u to tell it's upstream. Now we've pushed it. If we go back to our Git repository and refresh the page, we now have our full code, including the package JSON, the lock. Notice what we don't have. What we don't have is this folder saying node module. And the reason for that is, or one of the reasons is, that it's in the git ignore file. This thing tells you what not to push up to Git. It's a lot of little bits and pieces that would not be useful to be pushed up. These are just sort of either temporary files, executable files, or things like that. So the node modules is one of those things. It's just not, because all this stuff is really not needed to be stored, not on your repository. You can just do an npm I whenever we create it. So what we're going to do, just to let the people know who are pulling this down, let's edit the README quickly. Set up and run this. Now, some steps we want to do npm I. Right, clone type npm I. Let's say we want to clone repository. Git clone. Basically, copy that. Then cd change to the project. cd into, what did we call it? We called it express dash init. And then we want to install install module npm I. Run the server npm run server. Okay, so that's to set up and run the app. To let's say to develop the app, while you're putting it on the end of the console, we want to do the same things, but instead of serve, we want to run npm dev, or npm run dev even. You know, add that in there. Opening VS Code, so probably want to do that before we do a run npm dev. But yeah, so let's save that. Let's have a quick preview of it. Now we've got how to set up and run the app and how to develop the app. Okay, so now we're going to go and push that. The README, yes, and then sync the changes with the remote. Two different ways of doing your Git workflow. One in the terminal, and the other using this actual source control here. Okay, so this has been probably a little bit longer than usual, but this concludes our video. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.